Assalamu alaikum, let's explore this Islamic topic together. Hey, so, you know how we were talking about different divination systems the other day? Well, I've been digging into Islamic geomancy. And it's seriously fascinating. It's not just some random fortune-telling thing. It actually holds a really significant place in Islamic history and thought, which I find super cool. Think of it this way. A lot of people associate divination with, like, crystal balls and tarot cards, things that maybe feel a bit woo-woo to some. But geomancy, especially in its Islamic form, is different. It's rooted in a deeply intellectual and spiritual tradition, connected to a rich understanding of cosmology, numerology, and even Islamic theology. It's not about predicting the lottery numbers or finding your soulmate. Instead, it's more about understanding the underlying patterns and rhythms of life. Imagine it as a kind of spiritual map, helping you navigate the complexities of existence. That's why it's been so important. Historically, Islamic geomancy wasn't just some fringe practice. It flourished during the Golden Age of Islam, a time of incredible intellectual and cultural achievement, think 8th to 13th centuries. Scholars and thinkers, deeply learned in astronomy, mathematics, and philosophy, were also actively involved in geomancy. It was incorporated into their studies, integrated into their worldview. It wasn't viewed as contradictory to faith but as a tool for understanding God's creation, a way to see the divine hand at work in the seemingly random events of life. Think about it, the Islamic world at that time was a hub of learning. Scholars from across the globe were translating ancient Greek, expanding upon existing knowledge, and creating entirely new fields of study. Geomancy, with its ancient roots, found a new home and a new flourishing within this rich intellectual environment. These scholars weren't just randomly drawing figures. They developed complex systems, theories, and interpretations around the 16 figures. That's the core of geomancy. 16 basic geometric patterns. Each figure represented something, a certain energy, a particular aspect of the universe, a potential outcome. They linked these figures to the elements: earth, air, fire, water, planets, and even astrological houses. They saw connections between the seemingly random patterns and the larger cosmic order governed by God. What I find truly compelling is how these scholars approached geomancy. It wasn't about passive acceptance of fate, as some interpretations might suggest. Instead, it became a tool for self-reflection, a catalyst for understanding one's place within the grand scheme of things. By understanding the patterns revealed in the geomantic chart, a person could gain insights into their situation, potential challenges, and how best to navigate life's uncertainties. This isn't just about abstract theory, either. The interpretations often involved advice, moral guidance, and even encouragement to act ethically. Geomancy wasn't a shortcut to avoid responsibility but a method to engage more deeply with the consequences of one's actions. It was seen as a way to be more mindful and purposeful in one's choices, understanding the ramifications of those choices within the larger cone of their life and belief. For example, if a chart revealed a pattern associated with difficulty or hardship, the interpretation wasn't just about accepting defeat. Instead, it might advise the seeker to increase their efforts in prayer, charity, or patience. It was viewed as a reminder to remain steadfast in one's faith and rely on God's guidance during challenging times. The wisdom wasn't simply going to happen, but rather the situation. Here's how you can approach it from a place of faith and strength. That's what makes it so interesting. I think it's not about some supernatural power predicting the future. It's about utilizing a system to help you reflect on your current circumstances and make better choices from a spiritual perspective. It's a tool for self-discovery rooted in a belief system, woven into a rich history, and integrated into a deeply intellectual tradition. It's a window into the intellectual curiosity and spiritual depth of the Islamic Golden Age, showcasing a connection between faith, reason, and the pursuit of knowledge that truly fascinates me. So yeah, Islamic geomancy. It's far more profound than you might initially think. It's a piece of history, a system of thought, and a surprisingly practical tool all rolled into one. It really shows how even seemingly esoteric practices can be deeply meaningful and integral to a culture's history and worldview. Hey, so, you know how we were talking about fascinating historical practices? Well, let me tell you about something truly wild. Hidden wisdom in Islamic geomancy. It's not as well known as, say, astrology, but it's incredibly rich and holds a surprisingly significant place in Islamic history. Imagine the world of the early Islamic Empire, bustling with trade, scholarship, and a thirst for understanding the divine. This wasn't just about conquering new lands. It was about absorbing and synthesizing knowledge from across the vast territories they controlled. They were masters of integrating Greek philosophy, Persian astronomy, and even ancient Babylonian practices into their own unique worldview. And geomancy, you see, fit perfectly into this vibrant intellectual melting pot. Now, geomancy itself is an ancient divination method. It's basically a system of interpreting patterns, not from the stars, like astrology, but from randomly d dots or lines. Think of it like flipping a coin repeatedly. But instead of heads or tails, you get different symbols. These symbols, when arranged in specific ways, are interpreted to reveal hidden meanings about the past, present, or future. It's incredibly simple in its mechanics, but surprisingly complex in its interpretations. What's fascinating is how Islamic scholars took this seemingly simple system and elevated it to new heights. They didn't just see it as a parlor trick. They saw it as a potential tool for understanding God's will, a way to gain insight into the workings of the universe and their own lives. This wasn't about defying God. It was about seeking deeper understanding within the framework of their faith. Think of it like prayer, but with an added layer of symbolic interpretation. The early forms of Islamic geomancy weren't just about predicting the future, though that was certainly part of it. It was deeply intertwined with other esoteric practices, with numerology, with astrology, and most importantly, with Islamic theology and mystical traditions like Sufism. These scholars saw connections between the random patterns D and the divine order, believing that God's wisdom was subtly revealed in these seemingly chaotic arrangements. The way it worked was elegant. You'd create a series of 4 lines of dots, each line representing a particular element or aspect. These lines could then be interpreted individually, or combined to create larger, more complex figures. Each figure was then linked to specific meanings, which were meticulously recorded and explained in detailed S. These S, passed down through generations of scholars and practitioners, reveal a nuanced system of interpretation, not just acting on straightforward predictions but also delving into the ethical and spiritual implications of the readings. Think of it like this. You wouldn't just ask, "Will I be rich?" You might ask something far more profound, like, "What is the divine purpose in my current situation?" Or, "How can I align my actions with God's will?" The answers weren't seen as definitive pronouncements from a higher power. but rather as insightful suggestions for reflection and self-improvement. The geomantic reading acted as a catalyst for introspection, encouraging the practitioner to consider their actions and their relationship with the divine. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The of interpreting these geomantic charts wasn't a purely mechanical exercise. It required deep knowledge of Islamic cosmology, theological concepts, and the intricate web of symbolic meanings embedded within the tradition. It wasn't something you could just pick up from a quick tutorial. It demanded years of study, reflection, and a deep understanding of Islamic thought. It was, in its own way, a form of spiritual discipline. The beauty of it lies in this integration of faith and practice. The random generation of symbols, the apparent chaos, is seen as a reflection of the unpredictable nature of life itself. Yet within that chaos, a deeper order is revealed, pointing towards the divine hand guiding everything. It's a powerful metaphor for faith, for trust in a higher power, even when faced with uncertainty. So, what began was not just a new divination system, but a new way of engaging with faith, a new avenue for seeking knowledge and understanding. It was a fascinating blend of seemingly disparate traditions, molded into a uniquely Islamic lens. It became a reflection of the intellectual dynamism of the era, showcasing the creative capacity of Islamic scholars to synthesize ancient wisdom with their own theological framework. It wasn't about replacing faith. It was about deepening it, understanding it through a different, more symbolic language. It's a truly captivating glimpse into the richness and complexity of Islamic history, one that continues to fascinate scholars even today. And that, my friend, is the magic of hidden wisdom in Islamic geomancy. Okay, so we've dipped our toes into the beginning of hidden wisdom in Islamic geomancy *. Right? We got a feel for the basics. The whole idea of using these simple figures, the houses, to get a glimpse into the future, or, more accurately, to understand the energies at play in a situation. But now, buckle up, because things get really interesting in the middle chapters. Think of it like this. We've learned the alphabet. Now we're tackling Shakespeare. Remember how we talked about its historical significance? Hidden wisdom isn't just some dusty old book. It's a crucial part of understanding how Islamic intellectual life intertwined with astrology, philosophy, and even mysticism. We're talking about a period, roughly from the 8th to the 15th centuries, where Islamic scholarship was absolutely flourishing. Think Baghdad, Cordoba, Cairo. These were centers of learning, attracting scholars from across the globe. And geomancy, with its elegant simplicity and seeming ability to tap into something deeper, found a really fertile ground there. The middle chapters are where the author really dives into the interpretation. It's not just, oh, this figure means good luck. It's way more nuanced. They start delving into the relationships between the figures. Think of it like a complex web, where each figure has its own personality, its own strengths and weaknesses, and then they interact with each other in all sorts of surprising ways. For example, you might have one figure representing ambition, another representing obstacles, and a third representing unexpected help. The magic, and I do mean magic in the sense of unexpected revelation, happens when you see how those three interact. Do the obstacles overwhelm the ambition? Does the unexpected help tip the balance? The book teaches you how to decipher these subtle relationships, almost like reading a conversation between the energies at play. And it's not just about predicting the future. A lot of the interpretations on understanding the nature * of a situation. It's less about, will I get rich? and more about what are the inherent strengths and weaknesses of this project? Or, what kind of energy am I bringing to this relationship? It's about self-awareness, understanding the forces influencing you, and making more conscious choices. This is where the religious con comes in subtly but powerfully. The whole practice is infused with a sense of divine will. It's not about manipulating fate, it's about understanding God's plan as it unfolds. Geomancy becomes a tool for reflection, a way to discern the path laid out before you, rather than a means to control it. This ties neatly into the Islamic emphasis on seeking knowledge and understanding God's creation. Knowledge isn't just for knowledge's sake, it's a form of worship. This is also where it gets incredibly fascinating from a philosophical perspective. Remember how each figure is represented by a simple arrangement of points? The author delves into the symbolism of these arrangements, linking them to various philosophical and cosmological concepts. It's not just arbitrary, there's a whole layer of meaning built into these seemingly simple patterns. You start seeing connections between the microcosm, your personal life, your specific query, and the macrocosm, the universe, God's creation. It's a very holistic way of seeing the world. The middle sections often introduce more advanced techniques. We might have initially learned about single-figure readings, but now we're looking at combinations, house analysis, examining the relationships between different houses within the chart. The book introduces concepts like the significator, a figure representing the central issue of your question, and how to interpret its relationship with other figures in the chart. It all becomes a very intricate and satisfying puzzle. One of the things I found particularly compelling was the emphasis on judgment. It's not just about passively receiving a prediction. The book constantly reminds you that human agency plays a critical role. You don't just get a reading and then sit back and wait. You are encouraged to actively engage with the insights gleaned, to use them to inform your decisions, and to take responsibility for your actions. This isn't a passive, fortune-telling system. It's a tool for self-discovery and empowerment. And it's precisely this integration of intellectual rigor, spiritual insight, and practical application that makes hidden wisdom in Islamic geomancy such a rich and rewarding exploration. It's not just about predicting the future. It's about understanding the present, making sense of your own experiences, and navigating life with more awareness and intention. It's a journey of self-discovery guided by an ancient, elegant system that's surprisingly relevant to our modern lives. So yeah, the middle chapters are where it really takes off, the payoff for all that initial groundwork. It's where the richness of Islamic intellectual history and the potential for personal growth truly shine. Hey, so, we've been diving into this fascinating world of Islamic geomancy, right? It's wild to think how deeply embedded it was in Islamic history. Isn't it? We talked about its use in everything from predicting the future, kind of like a really intricate symbolic horoscope, to helping make important decisions, even advising on military strategy. Imagine medieval scholars poring over these geomantic charts, seeking divine guidance in a world with far fewer certainties than we have today. Remember how it all started with those simple 16 figures. The basic building blocks, each one had its own personality, almost like a miniature character in a cosmic play. And then the way they combined, creating these intricate relationships, it's like a hidden language woven into the fabric of the universe. It wasn't just about predicting the future, though. It was about understanding the nature of things, the underlying currents of fate and fortune, all interpreted through this lens of Islamic cosmology and theology. As we near the end of our exploration, it's important to realize that Islamic geomancy didn't just end. It evolved. It didn't have a dramatic final chapter, a big bang or a sudden collapse. More like a gradual fading into the background, interwoven with other forms of divination and knowledge. Think of it as a river slowly emptying into a larger ocean. You see, as the Islamic world progressed, and scientific thought blossomed, especially with the advancements spurred by the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, new methods of understanding the world emerged. Astronomy and mathematics, for example, offered increasingly sophisticated ways to grapple with questions of time and causality, replacing the more intuitive and symbolic approach of geomancy in many scholarly circles. It wasn't a rejection, per se, more of a shift in emphasis. However, geomancy didn't simply disappear. It lingered on, mostly in private practice and within certain Sufi circles. Sufism, with its mystical and esoteric traditions, provided a fertile ground for geomancy to continue its subtle existence. Imagine those quiet nights, the flickering candlelight casting shadows on intricate charts. A practitioner seeking guidance not from scientific certainty, but from a deeper, more intuitive connection to the divine. The beautiful thing about Islamic geomancy is that it remained closely tied to its religious core. The interpretations often reflected Islamic values and beliefs, connecting the geomantic figures to specific verses from the Quran, or to stories from the Prophet Muhammad's life. It wasn't just a game of chance or a cold calculation. It was a spiritual practice, a way to seek guidance within a divinely ordained framework. Its prominence shifted. The widespread scholarly interest waned, replaced by other methodologies. Yet, it endured, weaving itself into the rich tapes of Islamic esoteric knowledge, continuing to intrigue and inspire individuals who found resonance in its symbolic language and its connection to the divine. Think of the countless manuscripts passed down through generations, each one bearing witness to the long history of this practice. Those aged pages, filled with intricate diagrams and cryptic interpretations, whisper tales of centuries past, echoing the quiet whispers of those who sought understanding through this unique method. Even today, pockets of geomantic practice remain within some Islamic communities, carrying the torch of this ancient tradition. Perhaps its lasting legacy lies not in its predictive power, but in its enduring ability to connect individuals to a deeper sense of meaning and purpose within the universe. It's a reminder that even as scientific knowledge advances, the human quest for meaning, for understanding our place in the cosmos, remains a constant. And in that sense, the hidden wisdom of Islamic geomancy continues to resonate, a quiet echo in the vast expanse of human history and spirituality. It's a fascinating blend of mathematics, philosophy, and faith, a testament to the incredible intellectual and spiritual depth of Islamic civilization. What do you think? Aren't you amazed by its story? So, what does hidden wisdom in Islamic geomancy teach Muslims today? It's a fascinating question, isn't it? Because it's not just about predicting the future, like some people might think. It's much, much deeper than that. Think of it less like fortune-telling and more like spiritual self-reflection guided by a centuries-old system. You know how Islamic history is filled with incredible thinkers and scholars? Well, geomancy, or ilm al-raml as it's called in Arabic, was a serious pursuit for many of them. It wasn't some fringe practice. It held a respected place, especially during the Golden Age of Islam. Imagine scholars in Baghdad, Cordoba, or Cairo, poring over these intricate diagrams, using them not just to ponder possible futures, but also to understand God's will, their own inner selves, and even to find solutions to everyday problems. The whole thing starts with randomness. You create a series of 16 dots, completely at random. You might toss pebbles, or make marks in the sand. This randomness is key. It's seen as a way to tap into the unseen, to let something beyond your conscious mind guide you. These dots are then grouped into 4 sets of 4. And these sets are then translated into different geometric figures. Each figure has its own symbolic meaning, representing different energies, qualities, and potential outcomes. Think of it like a really intricate, symbolic Rorschach test, but instead of ink blots, you're working with these ancient symbols. It's fascinating. And from these figures, you can build a chart, almost like a mini astrological map of the situation you're pondering. Now, what does this teach Muslims today? Well, for starters, it fosters a deeper connection with the divine. Remember, the initial act is random, but the interpretation is deeply meaningful. It's a way of recognizing that, even in apparent chaos, there's a divine order, a pattern we can to understand. The itself encourages contemplation and prayer, helping you to approach your questions with humility and a reliance on God's guidance. It's not about demanding answers, but about seeking wisdom and understanding. It also promotes self-awareness. The isn't just about external events, it's also a reflection on your internal state. The figures and their combinations can offer insights into your own strengths, weaknesses, and potential pitfalls. You might find yourself unexpectedly confronting aspects of your character you hadn't previously considered. It's almost like a guided meditation, leading you to self-discovery. Beyond personal growth, geomancy can be applied to practical matters. Traditionally, people used it for things like business decisions, travel planning, or even considering marriage. It wasn't about replacing careful planning and prayer, but about adding another layer of reflection and contemplation to the decision-making. It helped people to consider different perspectives and potential outcomes, encouraging a more holistic and thoughtful approach. However, it's crucial to understand that Islamic geomancy isn't about predicting the future with absolute certainty. It's more about unveiling potential outcomes and understanding the energies at play. The interpretation is subjective, relying on the practitioner's knowledge and intuition. It's a tool, not a crystal ball. The ultimate decision always rests with the individual, guided by their faith and understanding of Islamic principles. This brings us to a really important point: responsibility. Islamic geomancy, like any tool, can be misused. It's not about passively waiting for fate to unfold. It's about actively engaging with your life, making conscious choices, and striving to live a life pleasing to God. The wisdom lies not just in the interpretations themselves, but in how you use those interpretations to navigate your life's journey. So, in the core of a modern Muslim's life, geomancy offers a unique blend of ancient wisdom and modern relevance. It's a system that encourages contemplation, self-reflection, and a deeper understanding of the relationship between the seen and the unseen. It's a method of approaching life's challenges with both humility and agency, placing trust in God's guidance while also taking responsibility for one's own choices. It's about finding hidden wisdom within yourself, through that links you to a rich and fascinating aspect of Islamic history and tradition. It's not about predicting the lottery, but about understanding your own inner landscape and navigating the complexities of life with a more thoughtful and spiritual approach. And that, I think, is a powerful thing indeed. Goodbye. May Allah bless us all. That's our discussion for today.